Greetings. I'd like to share with you a reading from the Gospel of John, chapter 8, verses 2 through 11. Hear the word of the Lord, let God's Spirit speak. Early in the morning, he came again to the temple. All the people came to him, and he sat down and began to teach them. The scribes and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in adultery, and making her stand before all of them, they said to him, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the very act of committing adultery. Now in the law of Moses commanded us to stone such a woman. Now what do you say?" They said this to test him, so that they might have some charge to bring against him. Jesus bent down and wrote with his finger on the ground. When they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and said to them, "Let anyone among you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." And once again, he bent down and wrote on the ground. When they heard it, they went away, one by one, beginning with the elders, and Jesus was left alone with the woman standing before him. Jesus straightened up and said to her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" She said, "No one, sir." And Jesus said, "Neither do I condemn you. Go your way, and from now on, do not sin again." The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. We've been reading through a portion of the gospel here where the Pharisees and the Sadducees and other temple authorities have been trying to trip Jesus up to catch him in some sort of conundrum between himself and the law and his teaching. They're also trying to turn the opinion of the people against him. This is a very bizarre story, it really is. They're so eager to catch Jesus in some sort of breaking of the law that they will go out of their way and make schemes to do it. Here they present to him a woman caught in the very act of adultery. I wonder what they had to do in order to catch her in the act. I wonder which man she was with, or was it one among their own? Doesn't really make a lot of sense other than the fact that they were playing both ends against the metal here and found themselves coming up short. I imagine when Jesus bent over to write in the dust, he may have been writing brief passages that talks about what they had done to catch this woman, to set him up, to set her up. Or perhaps he was writing some names in the dust, trying to infer who it was that she was caught with. One by one, after hearing him say, "Those of you without sin, which one of you would judge her? Which one of you would cast the first stone?" And of course, all of them realized very quickly that they are the guilty party, individually and as a group. I like what Jesus says to her. He said, "They didn't condemn you, neither do I." Then he says something that's difficult and people often speak back and forth about this, trying to figure this out, what he meant. Do not sin again. I think he's telling her, don't live in this kind of lifestyle. Don't put yourself in this kind of a place. You know the rules. You know the regulations and law. And you know what's best for yourself. Go and live differently. I find it interesting that these Sadducees and Pharisees, believing themselves to be really just the offspring of Abraham and the holders of the commandments and those who know the law, but approach Jesus in this way, hoping to trip him up and make him look a fool in front of the crowd. It's self-righteousness And it's the kind of self-righteousness that's very, very distasteful. It's the one who points the other direction and says, look at that person, while they're busy committing sins of their own. The gospel challenges us to live a life of truth, to live into justice, rather than to be caught up in the grand lie of our sin. Pharisees, they believe themselves to be holders of the truth, keepers of all that the prophets said and all that the commandments tell us. But being keepers of that is not enough. We need to live into it. All of us, like the woman here caught in the very act of adultery, none of us can say that we live without sin or point in the other direction and say, look what that person's busy doing, while we ourselves are busy committing some other sin that's no better. We need to be forgiving of one another, but we also need to do what Jesus says here to the woman. From now on, do not sin again. Don't live in the direction that you know you shouldn't be living in. Don't promote the lie. Live in ways that are beneficial to yourself, to your community, and to treat your neighbor with the love and respect that the Christian faith calls us to live into. Jesus is still writing in the dust. We just need to pay heed to what he's writing in front of us. His correction is loving, it's true, it's kind, and it's filled with grace and forgiveness. It gives us another chance, doesn't it? Always another chance to step out in faith and head in the right direction. That's the challenge today. Walking with Christ in the right direction. When we slip, the Spirit will correct us, give us guidance, and there'll be some forgiveness, grace, and an opportunity to live better as God's people. Amen.